Today I am going to talk to you about the human digestive system. Whatever we eat goes inside us, but what is it used for? It is used to drive us, it is used to give us energy that keeps us going. Now, our body is a machine that needs the fuel, and the fuel is food. Yes, of course. So, let us see what happens. Now, you use your hands to put the food into your mouth. Once inside your mouth, the digestion, which means the breakdown of food into little pieces that could finally be absorbed into the blood, that start itself in the mouth. Now, there are two kinds of digestion. One is the physical one and one is the chemical one. What happens in the physical digestion is that our teeth, they tear apart the food, cutting them into smaller and smaller pieces so that they become smaller in size and are easy to take inside our body. Also, side by side, the tongue mixes the food with saliva. Now, what does this saliva do? Saliva contains an enzyme called salivary amylase. We also commonly known it by the name of ptyalin. Now, the ptyalin acts on the starch, converting it into maltose sugar. So, see friends, the digestion, physical as well as chemical, starts in the mouth itself. Now, what happens to that food? That food goes inside our body into the stomach through this food pipe. The food pipe, friends, is also known by the name of esophagus. Its walls are muscular, and those muscular walls, they perform a rhythmic contraction and expansion movement called peristalsis. We also name it peristaltic movement. So now that rhythmic contraction and expansion, guys, that pushes the food forward into our stomach, right? Now, as the food goes inside our stomach, the stomach is a storage organ. This won't happen that the food just enters it and leaves it. No, the food will stay there for a while. Now, what happens while the food is there in the stomach? The walls of the stomach have certain glands, which we call the gastric glands. Now, among different secretions that the walls of the stomach secretes, there are a few things. Mainly, they are the gastric juices, they are the hydrochloric acid and the mucus. Every one of them have their own particular function to perform. So let us go over them one by one. Hydrochloric acid, you might be wondering, hydrochloric acid, it's an inorganic acid. It might cause damage. No friends, it does not, because it is very diluted and in very less quantity. So it cannot pose any damage to our body. So hydrochloric acid, what it does is, it number one kills the germs that might have entered the body along with the food, and number two, and very important thing, it makes the environment inside the stomach, that is the food, it turns the environment acidic. Why is that important? The environment is important because pepsin, that is the enzyme which is going to digest the proteins, it is not going to act until it finds an acidic medium. So HCl provides that acidic medium which can help the pepsin to do its work. Then what does the mucus do? Any idea? Okay. The mucus does a very important function. It deposits as a layer inside our stomach, protecting it from the harmful effects of the hydrochloric acid. Now, after the pepsin has acted on the food, digesting the proteins, and it converts them into peptones, the food stays in the stomach from around 3 to 6 hours, from where then it goes into the small intestine. At the end of the stomach, there is a valve type structure called the sphincter muscle. You know what it does? It releases the food in very little quantities slowly into the small intestine. You know why? Because small intestine is not a storage organ. The food will just enter it, passes through it and goes into the large intestine. So if the food enters the small intestine in huge quantity, it will not get enough time to get properly digested by the enzymes that it will encounter in the small intestine. Can you tell me, where have you seen this sphincter? Okay, go ahead, write in the chat box or write in the comment section. Where have you seen this sphincter? Okay, let me give you one example. Friends, every day we use many taps. The thing that we revolve at the top of the tap, it is a sphincter. What it does? It controls the amount of water that comes out of the tap. Exactly in the same way, the sphincter muscle at the end of the stomach controls or regulates the amount of food that is released into the small intestine. Now, small intestine further gets the secretion of the liver and the pancreas. Right? Liver secretes bile juice. Bile juice consists of bile pigments and bile salts. And the pancreas secretes pancreatic amylase. They reach the small intestine. You know what bile juice does? The bile juice and the bile salts together, they act to emulsify the fats. Notice the term emulsify. We are not saying digestion. They emulsify the fats, that is, they break down the fats into smaller globules. And the pancreatic amylase, it contains trypsin, which again is a protein digesting enzyme. Now you know what happens? Opposite to how pepsin works, the trypsin only works in an alkaline medium. But what is the nature of the food that is coming from the stomach? It is acidic. So there needs to be something which can make the food alkaline. And that something or that environment is provided by the bile pigments. It makes the food alkaline for trypsin to act. Also, there are innumerable glands in the walls of the small intestine which collectively finally breaks down the food or digests the food completely, and at the end, what do we get? Carbohydrates get converted into glucose, proteins gets converted into amino acids, and fats gets converted into fatty acids and glycerol. All these together activities, all these enzymes together ultimately lead to these things. From there, from the walls of the small intestine, this digested food gets absorbed into the blood, which carries it to the whole body, which we are going to, we will be discussing that under respiration. So it gets moved on in whole body, gets utilized, the waste substance are brought back and everything, excretion, everything sets in. From here, the unabsorbed food moves into the large intestine. Now, you can see from the figure over here, the large intestine is very wide, while the small intestine is very narrow, though it is larger in length. So friends, it is a very common misconception. The small intestine is called small because of its width, not because of its length. It actually is the longest part of the food canal or the longest part of the alimentary canal of the body. The total length of the alimentary canal is approximately 9 meters, while the small intestine itself is approximately 6 meters in length. So it is the longest part of the alimentary canal. Still, it is called small because of its diameter, not because of its length. Now, what happens inside the large intestine? The water from the food gets absorbed through the walls of the large intestine, and the semi-solid paste that gets formed, it moves ahead and gets stored in the rectum until it is excreted out through the anus. So this is the broad outline of the digestive system of human beings. I hope you would have been able to understand it very well. If you have any questions, write to me, write in the comment section. I will like to answer each and every one of your questions. Thank you so much for watching.